Welcome to part one of my two-part interview with Michal Chai, previously of the WCA, now the CEO of the PSL. That's a lot of acronyms, isn't it? The Premier Speedcubing League. The league was announced recently, and there's been some feedback from the community, not all positive. So I wanted to have a really straight-up conversation with Michal and ask him some hard questions. So in this part, we talk specifically about his transition out of the WCA and into a leadership role at Premier Speedcubing Lead PSL. There's a story about that timeline, about why he resigned early and how that's connected to PSL. Who is actually behind PSL? We talk about that. And we talk about a little bit how he's feeling about that community backlash. Not backlash, but, feedback that wasn't all positive at all. And also we talk about Timebase and accusations around financial improprieties around Timebase and assigned money from registration fees from the WCA. We get to the bottom of it, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get into it, shall we? I thought it would be a really good idea to start by just saying who we are and what our connections to and allegiances to the PSL are. Do you feel like you've introduced yourself, or do you want to have another swing at it?
I'll introduce myself real quick,
Sure.
in case anyone's just tuning in or it's like further confused. So my name is Michal Chai, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Premier Speedkeeping League. And yeah, it's just been this has been a project that I was interested in pursuing, even when it wasn't fully fleshed out. Like, I think all of us have had ideas of what the future of cubing looked like, and that's where I was all like daydreaming, thinking to myself, what would this look like? And it was just an interesting opportunity to kind of like get things going. And yeah, I'm just here, as you said, to answer any questions. I hope the questions that you prepared are, uh, what's the right phrasing of it? I hope the questions that you prepared do justice of the community of what they're asking, right? I think that's the best way to say it. Part of the reason that you see me online, I don't think I'm a very marketable person, first off. I don't think I have any utility in marketing myself in the league. I think I'm the farthest thing from it. But I do understand that there are some, important questions that I can definitely help answer. And that's part of like the whole approach, to this. I think reaching out to people if they have any questions and concerns. And I know you reached out to me, and yeah, so ready to answer any questions.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we spoke candidly earlier in the week. We had an off-air sort of chat when and you basically were just like, yeah, no question is off limits, pretty much. And I was like, are you sure about that? Well, let's find out. Let's find out. And since then, obviously, yeah, I've streamed and made a video about a particular post in Cubix's Friends, which I thought was just a little bit, it was just coming a bit hard at you, and I thought that was a little bit unfair. I don't really know you at all, but yeah, I guess. So hello everyone, I'm Mike, host of CubeCast and owner of speedcube.co.nz, the biggest little speedcube store in the world, here in New Zealand. My connection to the PSL is I don't have one. I just want to watch cubing on TV, really. That's all I want to do. So I don't really have a personal connection, just an emotional, I suppose you could say, an emotional connection. That said, I would love to partner in some way with. So just for clarity, I would like to partner in some way, and we've talked about that off air, and we'll talk to that in the future, I'm sure, as well. So I do have kind of a potential future stake. Currently, I have no stake whatsoever, except that I would like to watch some speed cubing. Thank you very much. I want to watch fast speed cubers go head to head against each other. I think that's about everything I need to disclaim. One thing I would like to sort of get you to talk to at the start that I think is important and I think has been missed, and I'm not sure if it's in your interviews. I can't remember because I can't remember things.
Sure.
But we've talked
They're
about
long interviews. It's okay. Yeah.
But your philosophy, a philosophy that we share in what we're doing, in so much as how I approach the podcast and about how you're approaching the league, is kind of nothing is sacred and everything is bendable to change. Do you want to talk about that sort of philosophy you're taking in there?
Yeah. So You're right. And I have talked about it, but I also think it's important to reiterate that because that's what I hope to be the greatest asset of the PSL, right? Just not being resistant to certain concepts, and really, really being able to create a healthy feedback loop, I think is the right phrase. So, first off, you're right. Nothing's really off the table. So, when we launch a product, I remember you said this. When we're launching a product, we're guessing at what people are looking for, and we're blending that with what we want to kind of see the end result look like. So, it's some version of compromise, because obviously consumers might have asked X, Y, and Z, and then the people who are trying to make that product come to life will run into hurdles. So they have to make compromise X, Y, and Z, right? So the product in itself is already a second deviation away from what the hopes and dreams are from what we want to achieve out of the league, which is, we hope success, we hope it connects to the mainstream, etc. Right? And I could answer any of those questions later on. But things such as format, things such as regulations, um, even to like the bare bones like logistics of like operations of how the comp is run, and details like that, all that is subject to change. And really, the important thing to get out of that is we need to have a change for a great reason, right? Um, and I would say like the format is probably like the biggest one that people have wanted to see changed, probably to be more consumer friendly. I think it's been well established that the current format makes it very difficult for a non-cuber to look at. But even the format is TBD, right? There's going to be hurdles throughout the way, and we're going to try out different methods of achieving something that's enjoyable to participate in, but also compete in, participate or watch. I don't know how much you're going to ask specific details. So maybe I will let my future answers kind of tell, make this part come to life. So I'll be answering questions and you'll hear me like, oh, that's something we might do.
Yeah,
Stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's likely, to be honest, given that I know what I'm gonna get into. But okay, so as I said, we're gonna talk about kind of WCA stuff first to give the background, because there's a big question about where the leagues come from, and there's questions around why you left the WC early, and I think some of those are connected, so I think they're worth exploring. So like my first question is quite general though. It's just like, how are you feeling first of all? Now that you've seen a bit of, there's been some pushback in places like Cubix's friends. Not to put too fine a point on it. Has that been surprising, or did you expect some of it? Because you've been in the community a lot longer than I have, and I'm possibly quite naive about that kind of stuff. I did see Red Bull come and go, but I like, how are you feeling after seeing some of the stuff that's been asked fairly and in some cases unfairly? Where are you?
Yeah, I would say no, I'm not disappointed or anything like that. I think when I was about to go public with the league, there was always that understanding that there would be pushback. And I'm okay with that, right? So, what a lot of people have to understand is, um, when there's criticism headed towards your way, you need to hear why the criticism exists, not what the criticism is per se. So I understand that a lot of the criticism comes from people that have a genuine love for cubing. And that is really why it exists. And they're providing that critique because they want to essentially still love what they love. That's okay. And I encourage it and I understand that. So I can't take it personal, right? I have to understand where they're coming from and then just sort of move forward with, concepts, ideas, and innovations. Really, the innovation that we were mentioning earlier, I have to continuously improve the league. because I don't know exactly what people want. I know what the majority of people, I think, based on who I talk to, want, but I don't know what everyone wants.
Mm.
And I'll do my best to really, make it right. But I think we're in the right direction because a good amount of criticism is healthy in order to move forward and have a great product. I think is the best way to phrase that. It's totally fine.
Yeah, cool. I ask because it's I find it hard sometimes. It's really difficult when you put yourself out there, and then you can immediately sort of disappear into the imposter space, the imposter syndrome space, and just be like, oh no, oh no, everyone hates it. What am I doing?
Yeah, I guess that's an inevitable feeling, right? But staying grounded in understanding like why this is important helps a lot,
Yeah,
right?
cool.
So the why that they provide the criticism is the why that I'm doing this, and I also have to be flexible on how I get to the end goal.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? And that's why we're all doing anything. Like, why are we all doing anything in the cubing space? It's because we all love cubing and we all want cubing to grow, and we're all just doing our different ways of making it happen. I'm sure everything
Yeah,
that we're
yeah.
all doing has a place. Okay, so a big one that we'll just dive straight into is your tenure on the board at the WCA. So you resigned mid-term. You resigned 18 months into a 3-year term, is my understanding. You also
Yeah,
resigned from your position as a team leader and a delegate as well. And then not long after that was in October, and now we're in February talking about the PSL. So there's an obvious question there, or there's an obvious conspiracy there. You quit the WCA to do the PSL. Like, what what is the truth of what happened there from the horse's mouth, so to speak?
sure. So the PSL. So I used the phrase founder very delicately because there's a reason why I didn't introduce myself as the founder per se. So long story short, yeah, so I left my position at the board, and I think what a lot of people might conveniently like what the answer to is if the sliding controversy like just pushed me off the edge. No, that's a long story short answer to that first. Um, so I left the board because I thought it would be an interesting opportunity to just try new things. I was really, really focused at work. So I was actually working towards, so I actually just completed a move up to, because I got a promotion at work essentially. So it was something that I was focusing on a lot of different things at the time. The PSL was actually a project that was not founded by me per se. So I've had many conversations with, do you know Tyson Mao,
I know the name. I don't know him personally.
the co-founder of the WCA?
Yeah.
So of just kind of doing this, extracurricular thing and project, because we're on good terms. And then he reached out to me while we were still on the board about pursuing, something more interesting, right? And then that's complicated, right? So, I thought it would be interesting, but it wasn't necessarily up to me to take that role. But I also thought things in terms of like how internally the board operated, it felt like a good time to go. Yeah, there were like little disagreements here and there, but it was just a good time. The reason being is because I thought it would be best for me to leave and then kind of settle down real quick. I thought that proposal from Tyson was a lot, I guess, is to say the least.
Can I just clarify
Um,
what the proposal exactly from Tyson was
of a high level speedkeeping league.
as part of the WCA?
No. So essentially, it was a project that he wanted to do outside of the WCA.
Okay.
But he reached out to me because I'm someone that he knew. I thought it would be in the best interest is first off, it was just time for me to leave. Secondly, I told him that this is best if, I'd love to work with you, but it's probably best if you have a conversation with the WCA first, because I thought that'd be a really great opportunity.
Of
And all of
course.
that has sort of intermingled. Like, if you think about it, the time is not that long. So conversations, I don't know where the conversations went, but long story short, um, from what I understand, the WCA and Tyson didn't end up working together. And then I was again approached, and I just decided to take it in January to do something new and innovative because I had just settled my move, doing my stuff, and yeah, scrambled to get a product out. That's also why you might notice there are some things that might feel rushed, if you think so, because that's truly what it was.
Yeah, right. Okay. So left the board in October, started working on PSL in January is the timeline.
Yeah, late January.
Late January. Wow. Yeah, that is not a lot of time. But then, okay, so
Yeah.
because I suppose I suppose the big thing was people are just one of the big feedbacks was it's unofficial. I wish it could be linked to the. I wish it could be WCA recognized, but is that asking a bit much at the moment of the WCA to recognize another format that's not average of five?
uh it's a good question. I don't think it's a bad thing per se. um I will say that different formats have been explored. So what people don't know, well, I think if you were in the WCA long enough, you would have known. But the WCA explored in the regulations, I want to say back in 2021, of like a head-to-head format, and it was rejected by staff members. I don't quote me on that. I think,
Okay.
um, yeah, you should deep dive into it. If someone in the chat is an OG cuber who might be a part of WCA staff, double check that. But I think that happened. I do know that at least a proposal in regulations did not move forward very far into the regulation cycle. And that proposal hits a lot of feedbacks, right? So, as far as if it's preposterous for this to be a part of the WCA, no, in fact, quite the opposite. Like I said, I thought it would be best if the WCA had the opportunity to take on this project first. What I will say is like, it feels like it's very fast, but there was like a very clear steps taken, advised side by side with Tyson. So the WCA could have quickly turned around and done this as well. It just so happens that if they're not going to do it, why not me?
Okay. I saw an interesting comment. I can't remember if it was in Cubix's friends, or if it was in the comments of my video. But somebody said or suggested, and I think they were staff, they suggested that the WCA is working on something like high level, like a high performance league, or like a, what are we saying? Like a premier league, like a top level league. And that we just had to wait around. We had to trust and wait. And I was like, well, that's not satisfactory. First of all, was my response to that. But is that something that you know? Oh, well, like, you wouldn't be able to talk about it if you did, I suppose. Like, are they
No, I
exploring other
mean,
avenues for top tier cubing?
so what you'll learn from me is like I'm more than welcome to like share my experience on the board, but I'm going to, completely respect that they have a lot of projects that they're working on,
Oh, of
and
course.
I wouldn't be able to confirm like anything what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can make assumptions. So like I can tell you like there's assumptions. Like obviously, I think a big deal in the WCA right now is like handling incidents. I think like competition, in person incidents, stuff like that. Like that's a big conversation. I think if you didn't think the board was talking about that, I think you'd be a little bit out of touch. They obviously care, or we obviously cared at the time. But there's just a lot of things that I'm sure, the board, they love the idea of high level cubing, right? If I didn't think that they would love the idea, I wouldn't share with them the opportunity to do that project with Tyson. Because at the time I was in a different phase, kind of like focusing on my career, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I wouldn't be able to confirm that.
No, for sure.
I could just, yeah,
Yeah, I'm
they
on.
they
I'm
are
on.
working very hard. Yeah, I would say that.
I know that. Yeah, they definitely work hard.
Yeah.
I've made my position clear where I'm just like, get a CEO. That's my whole kind of vibe. It's just like, get a CEO, make your lives easier, put someone
Yeah.
in front of operations. That's another conversation, which I'm sure there's problems involved with it. But
I think,
I've always worked on boards with
down the
CEOs.
road, yeah, down the road, like as time passes, I'm sure we can definitely talk about like fun things we'd like to see implemented into the WCA. I'm sure that's no harm.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the WCA is working on stuff, and I can't really say what they are and aren't on
Yeah,
at
no,
this
for
moment.
sure. No,
To,
obviously. I
in
guess
their respect, yeah.
we'll just have to sit and wait, like that commenter suggested. We just have to trust and sit
Well,
and
I
wait.
like the, I heard, or I think Dan made his um, application public,
Yeah, he
and I
did.
really like the idea. I really like the idea of trying to connect with the community. Um, so I hope to see maybe more progress on that,
Mm.
because that'd be very interesting.
I actually, when I
Um,
went through Dan's application, I made a video on it. I made the call out then. It's just like, Dan, there's always a space for you here. If you want to connect the WC to the community, then right here. If you want to go, it's a small part of it. My audience isn't huge, but the opportunity is there for you. Um,
yeah,
okay, so timeline we've discussed. I had a question. Someone reached out to me personally on Discord. This one's relatively
sure.
spiky, and it was like kind of out of the blue for me. I was like, oh, okay,
You're good. No worries.
interesting. So, you have been accused, Michal Chai. You have been accused
Okay.
of trying to start or fund initiatives, I'm quoting, using WCA funds. And there was no evidence given to me about it because it couldn't be shared. Apparently it exists but couldn't be shared. But
Sure.
they spoke about something specific, which was Timebase, that you used,
Okay.
that you circumvented WIC regs to use the WCA funds to fund Timebase with the intention of making money personally, was the accusation. I'll give that to you
Okay.
to talk to.
Sure. So Timebase, in case anyone is unfamiliar with Timebase as a project, it's basically Timebase is a project where there is like a display that is able to connect to the cloud, and you're able to automate a result intake from stopping the timer and basically eliminating the need for paper scorecards. It's a work in progress project. Now, when I heard about it, I was very intrigued by it, and I thought it was something that'd be really cool to explore. So, first off, to answer the question in the room, no, there is no incentive to profit from Timebase. I'm not a part of it. I do think it'd be great for the community, because one thing to keep in mind is that the community is looking for a speed stacks alternative. Anyone in the chat telling me otherwise?
There's no one in the
Cool. I'll
chat saying you
continue.
otherwise.
So,
Can confirm.
exactly. Can confirm. So, just wanted to put that out there. So, let me phrase it in a way. Okay, so let's say, no, actually, I'm not going to beat around the bush, and then I'll explain after because people will just think it's a workaround. So, we, West Coast Cubing funded the production of the first displays of Timebase because we thought it would be really, really cool for the community to potentially have something in this. But that's it. We're not looking for profit out of it. We're not going to get profit out of it, right? And if they do whatever they want with it, we don't get incentives for it. We were just helping jumpstart the project because, you know, it helps. Every little bit helps. So that's pretty much it. We funded the production of Timebase,
So that
and
was
there is
what
nothing else to it.
specifically West Coast Cubing funded the production,
Yeah.
or okay. So it wasn't WCA exactly. It wasn't WCA funds.
Well, that's where, I understand where people might come from. The registration fees came from somewhere, right? The money came from somewhere. They come from registration fees. What we thought was the right thing to do is we were going to spend money in a cubing product that we would hope benefit the entire cubing community. So it's the same idea as if you're an RO spending money on like a Google ad, for example, to have your RO kind of be in the public face towards like non-cubers, for example. Um, does that directly, benefit the cubing community? It's up for you to debate. But it's basically like investing money in a product that you hope you'll see a great return into the community from. Is that a fair analogy? I don't know if that's a fair
I think
analogy.
so. It makes sense.
Because there's a startup cost to building. You had to like build the time-based displays by hand,
Yeah.
essentially. So we funded that. Nowhere were we going to get any profit out of it. Where I was going to go before people thought I was going to like give a workaround answer. So that's the answer. Where I was going to go was, people have their own opinions about, time-based and stuff like that. But if you think about it, if SpeedStacks really is who they are, you were probably going to end up with one of the Chinese companies potentially trying to monopolize the market in the future, right? You already see them trying to do that. Qi displays, for example, right? Like that's one thing that they're trying to do. And you see these companies coming out with their own timers. So, a lot of people complain that, is that, what is the purpose of time-based? Like, does it do anything good? Can it be used across the world? Is it cheap to make? Stuff like that. Who is it benefiting? But no one's asking the question, like, if you pay for a Qi display, who is it benefiting? If you pay for a Qi timer, who is it benefiting? The point is this is a product that's supposed to benefit cubers and specifically benefit staff members to eliminate the extra scorecard thing. I don't know what Timebase wants to do with like in the future, let's say they're in full production mode, stuff like that. We have no ties to that. We just wanted to help start up the first set, like first few displays. And that's about it.
Okay. Couple of questions coming in the chat. Prosta's pushing back saying, no,
Sure.
wait, he hasn't answered the question. Did he use the WCA funds? Well, I think you said you used West Coast cubing funds, but that did come from comp registration. So I suppose you could say that the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I would like to see the reg. I'd like someone to put in front of me where it says that you can't in the WIC regs or guidelines or whatever, because it wasn't for personal.
Well, I hope that answered your question. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. Look, West Coast cubing, we thought it would be beneficial to the community if time-based were successful.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So because then that's an alternative.
We wanted to try out a project.
Because then we're actually, if it is successful, then you're actually paying cubers to make the new SpeedStacks alternative. Because like you said, if you're paying Qi, you're just paying another company. If you're paying Moyu, you're just paying another company.
I didn't say that. Like, for example,
I misunderstood.
For example, the time-based people could do it for free, for all I care. Like, they could do it for free. Like, maybe they don't get a dime out of it. But let's say it's a successful product that, let's say the WCA, wants to support it, right? Well, that's a win.
Yeah.
The cubing community wins. Does it not?
Wabba Dabba in the chat has just put Code of Ethics 1.5, profit acquired from a competition must not be kept for personal gain by the organizer or the delegates and should be put towards the benefit of the community. There we are. That lines up for me. If you ever see
Timebase, look, if Timebase, whatever they decided to, let's say either it's for free, let's say whatever, they take the project and run away with it, I'm not able to touch it. It's not mine. I just really think it'd be great for the community to see, and I believe in the project. That's it.
Peter Barker in the chat, there are staff members behind Timebase, which makes it sketchy. Yes, but I'm going to come in as a big board member, dad, powerhouse here and just be like, that's actually fine as long as you have good conflict of interest.
Can I interject real quick?
If conflict of interest registers. Yes, of course.
So there is an ideal world that exists, and I understand people think that's like a weird, like it's a weird dynamic, and yeah, conflicts of interest, you got to declare it, stuff like that. But I think you got to understand that there's a lot more similarities between projects than people realize. And yeah, staff members are involved in Timebase. Did you know that the WCA website redesign is by WCA staff members?
But they were paid, Michal Chai. That's corrupt. Kick them all out.
Just saying, like just look.
No, it makes perfect sense.
By the way, like if I was in the interest of spilling beans, I would love to have conversations, right? But what I'm saying is what the WCA did is right. Don't get me wrong. They should. Absolutely should. Pay the cubers to do a great job on our product. But people are nitpicky.
Yeah.
They like to see specific things, unfortunately, for specific people, by specific people. So look, we can like stay silent for 5 minutes and let the chat interject for that if you'd like. But I totally love a conversation.
I think that it makes total sense because the people most passionate about cubing and the people most passionate to develop cubing are also quite often the same people who are passionate enough to be delegates and staff members. Like it's a fairly obvious and expected crossover, in my opinion. And that's why I come back to, just like if I'm just coming off governance, just declare those conflicts of interest. That's fine. That's what a conflict of interest register is for. I actually haven't found one. I wonder if there is one. I'm sure there must be one, but I haven't found it yet. So if someone can find it and link it to me, then I'd love to see it.
There is a conflict of interest form. Yeah, because I had to fill it out.
Yeah,
but it's cool
because it's pretty like basic board stuff that has to be completed and it has to be publicly available.
It's not just a conflict of interest for board. It's like if you're a staff member.
For staff member,
I remember, I think when I was a delegate, I had to fill it out.
Yeah.
I don't remember where to find it anymore. But yeah, it exists beyond just being on the board. So look, and I get it. And I get it where people like think like that's like immoral. But the truth is that's just telling half the story.
Yeah.
Whether so we can, again, would love to see if anyone is interested in following that.
A really good question. Are they going to use Timebase at PSL?
Are we going to use Timebase at PSL?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we're exploring options. So
I wonder if that's got.
I mean, I would love to incorporate technology, but if you think about it, okay, to be fair, I think when you think about how Timebase works, it doesn't necessarily work in our format. Tag, scramble, tag, and then we're also head to head, and it's all like stationary, and Timebase is written, from what I understand, in a way that is not super compatible with that. But I would love to incorporate that technology into the league. Obviously that's not easy work, but I'm having conversations. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I would love to see something super cool come out of it. And I think it's a labor of love almost, in a way. Like there has to be like a level of motivation to kind of see something like that come to life, because there's no rewards to reap out of this, right? So
yeah,
it takes a lot of time to do that. So I wouldn't blame them if, we wouldn't be able to figure it out. But I would love to incorporate tech into the future.
James is asking, do you know what the state of Timebase is now, just before we move on to PSL itself? Haven't seen any further developments since All-Stars.
Do I know? Dude, if you know me personally, you know that I don't know a lick of code. I don't know. I don't know. Truthfully, I have no idea like where that code lives. I mean, I have like asked for like potential partnership and like exploring specific things, but again, ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
Right. As far as how much they've developed since the last time they've had it, I wouldn't be able to speak to that answer. My assumption is I haven't heard too much, so probably either nothing has happened or everything has changed.
Or something in between.
Well, when someone goes like dark like that for a while, usually it's because it's just quiet or it's a lot of things happening, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to know.
Okay, I'm gonna move the conversation on to the sort of the PSL itself.
Wait.
The premier. Sorry, one more.
Hold on. Any more questions about?
From the
because
chat?
I understand this is a topic that people are curious about, Timebase. So I completely understand. But I hope that analogy painted the picture very clearly.
I think it worked for me. I'm noticing it's an interesting numbers thing happening today on stream because there's a lot of people listening. I got 34 in the room, which is that's like a decent episode of Cubecast, but not many people chatting. So there's a lot of people just listening and taking it all in, is what I'm observing at the moment.
Well, and I understand this is why this is important. This is why you hosting it is super important, right? I think people are curious, and that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. What I
We
would
can
like,
move on.
what I would
Sorry,
like
let's
to
just
do. No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm sure people are gonna come in and with questions and mess up my edit later, and then I'm gonna have to actually work on it and think about it instead of just chopping it in half. Because that's what you do to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.